All right, Daniel 7, and we'll be in verse 26, I guess. He says, "The judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him." That's the great ending, and we'll be there one day. So we started talking about these saints and how they're going to take the kingdom, and they're going to take them in a group of at least two armies. So we gave you an overview of Judges 5 last week, and now we'll delve into it a little deeper. Judges 5, verse 1. Judges 5, verse 1. Judges 4 has been the story of Barak and Sisera and Deborah going after the bad guy, and they slay him and set Israel free. But then she writes a song, and this is a poetry. Poetry in the Bible has a punch to it. It's not just to hear and enjoy, it's so you'll remember it. For us, this doesn't feel like poetry. For them, it was. But this poetic stuff is intended to linger in your mind, to make you meditate on it, because it has deep meaning beyond just a simple thing, and we'll see it as we go through. Verse 1, Judges 5:1. Then sang Deborah and Barak, the son of Abinoam, on that day, saying, and then she's going to go through the whole chapter. But it's of such importance that you'll notice these prophetic things. Many times they're poetry. The book of Psalms is all songs, but they're done in such a way that if you read those things, nearly all of them have a prophetic meaning behind them. They're very deep things. Look at it in Acts 2. Acts 2, verse 25. Acts 2:25. For David speaketh concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face, for he's on my right hand, that I should not be moved. Therefore did my heart rejoice, and my tongue was glad. Moreover also my flesh shall rest in hope, because thou wilt not leave my soul in hell. Okay, that's obviously not him. David didn't go to hell. Neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. David isn't the Holy One. Thou hast made known to me the ways of life. Thou shalt make me full of joy with thy countenance. Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us this day. Therefore, being, verse 30, a prophet. So when you're reading something David wrote, check it out. 9 times out of 10, it's prophecy. He says, therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him, that of the fruit of his loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne. That is, David had an understanding beyond his time, and probably some things he did not understand, but were the words God gave him to write poetry. And we read it, and now we see clear pictures in it. Look at it in Psalm 149. Psalm 149, verse 6. Now, how in the world could David have known what this meant? Psalm 149, verse 6. Probably one of my favorite passages in Psalms, until I read another one. He says, let the high praise of God be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen, and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains, and their nobles with fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye the Lord. One day it's going to be fulfilled. Wasn't really fulfilled in David's day. Now, he did do some slaughtering. He was called a bloody man. Look at it in Psalm 110. Psalm 110, verse 5. Obviously prophecy, not David. Psalm 110, verse 5. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the palaces with the dead bodies. He shall wound the heads, plural, over many countries. Now, what heads is he wounding over countries? I know that it means, most people take it to mean the heads of state. He's going to hurt them. However, we find that the Antichrist gets a wound. And you find out also that he busts up one of the heads of Leviathan to feed them in Petra. And that's literally busting up the heads over the countries. Psalm 21, verse 8. Psalm 21, verse 8. Thy hand shall find out all thine enemies, thy right hand shall find out those that hate thee. Thou shalt make them as a fiery oven in the time of thine anger. The Lord shall swallow them up in his wrath, and the fire shall devour them. Now that's pretty clear that that's not something David did. And he's writing prophetically, and one day God's going to do it. Back to Judges 5, verse 2. Judges 5:2. Praise ye the Lord for the avenging of Israel, when the people willingly offered themselves. Now, you can see the double application. These men did go out to war, and it was not a sure thing. They didn't know if they were coming home, so they were giving up their life to go defend. That's true. However, there's more to the story than that. Look at Isaiah 34. Isaiah 34:8. The avenging has not really taken place. God's had a little hiccup here and there where he couldn't stand people and he got rid of them, like he did in chapter 4. However, the big one's coming still. Isaiah 34:8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance. Now there's the real recompense, that's vengeance. And the year of the recompense for the controversy of Zion. That's still future. Deborah thought that she saw it already. She hadn't seen it yet. Isaiah 61:2. Isaiah 61:2. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of the vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. Now, I know it's not that year, but I'm going to proclaim it anyway. Let's say this year is the year.
Amen.
Now, it's not, because we got to get out of here first. However, for anybody in the tribulation, it would be a good idea for them to start singing, "This is the year," because one day it will be. And he says there, and to comfort all that mourn. That reminds you of the Beatitudes, and they will be literally mourning. Isaiah 63:4. Isaiah 63:4. For the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. That is God himself doing the battle. He's down there fighting and involved in it. You'll find several places where it refers to God actually being involved in the battle. And some of those, I think, are literal, and some of them are prophetic about what he's going to do. Jeremiah 46. Jeremiah 46:10. This is a powerful verse. All of them are, but because of, I'll show it to you. Jeremiah 46:10. For this is the day of the Lord God of hosts. Host is an army, and it's host plural, so there's two of them. A day of vengeance, that he may avenge him of his adversaries. The sword shall devour, and it shall be satiated and made drunk with their blood. For the Lord God of hosts hath a sacrifice in the north country by the river Euphrates. That is, he's got, for years and years, he made all of Israel come up to see him 3 times a year and bring a sacrifice. Now he says, you've done it for me, I'll do it for you. He says, I've got to get to the sacrifice. And it's on a certain date, on a certain year. Micah 5, verse 15. Micah 5, verse 15. I like these verses about God talking braggingly about what his plans are for the future. I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard. There's just something about that sounds powerful. Luke 21, verse 22. Luke 21:22. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. That is, they're supposed to be running through that Old Testament, finding the prophecies, of what it means for God to avenge his enemies in the last days. Revelation 18, verse 20. I didn't make y'all do much flipping of verses this morning, so we're going to take care of it tonight. Revelation 18:20. Rejoice over her, thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. That is, it's like the stereotypical bully in school picks on the kid not knowing he's got a big, mean older brother, and he comes to school with him one day and beats up the bad guy. That's going to be Israel in the tribulation. The Antichrist and the devil and the false prophet and all the demons are out to get them. And then we show up with trailing behind the Lord, and he mops the floor with them. Revelation 19:2. True and righteous are his judgments, for he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. That is, God said, I finally feel like I've gotten closure. You know, that's the phrase they throw around now. That means nothing until God closes the books. And he says right here, I'm going to get all my anger out right here. And then we can start over. Judges 5, verse 3. Judges 5, verse 3. And now it starts getting deep. We've been in 3 verses, so you've got the nursery rhymes out of the way. Judges 5:3. Hear, O ye kings, give ear, O ye princes. I, even I, will sing unto the Lord. I will sing praise to the Lord God of Israel. And he's got 2 plural words in there. Princes and kings. Now, the princes could be a reference to the tribes of Israel, each one being a prince. Maybe. Look at it in chapter 5, verse 15. Here he calls the people in Issachar princes. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar, and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley for the divisions of Reuben. There were great thoughts of heart. So there we find that one tribe has been called princes, and it could be that he's referring to all of the tribes of Israel as being princes. They're all supposed to be a representative of him to the heathen. But when we get to these kings, there weren't any kings, plural, involved in the fight. It was one king, and he didn't come to the battle. So that's got to be something that's bigger than the story. And one day there's going to be a battle, and there's going to be multiple kings present, and God's going to squish them all. There's only one king involved in the story in chapter 4, Jabin, the king of Canaan. But he didn't show up. He sent his general down there to do the business. Judges 4, verse 2. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera. Sisera is just a general, which dwelt in Hoshereth of the Gentiles. How do you say that word? Harosheth of the Gentiles. Our verse said, though, kings, plural. There's only one king in the story that doesn't show up, so it's not really him. I mean, you could stretch it to act like it is. But we know at the second advent there's going to be kings, plural there. God's going to put them all in one spot so he can squish them all at once. Judges 5, look at verse 19. Judges 5, verse 19. You know for sure when you get to this verse, he's talking about something that was not in the story in chapter 4. The kings, plural, came and fought. Then fought the kings, plural, of Canaan and Taanach by the waters of Megiddo. They took no gain of money. Okay, so this is going to be a time when they all the kings of that area, Canaan, get together and fight, and it's going to be fighting the Lord, and they ain't going to win. Judges 5, look at verse 4. Lord, when thou wentest out of Seir, when thou marchest out of the field of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. The clouds also dropped water. We're way outside of what happened in chapter 4. You know where the battle was. This is way north in Israel. Megiddo is way up there by Mount Carmel, whatever that is. And Edom is south of Israel. That's down there beyond the Dead Sea. That's Petra. So he's included that in the mix here, because there's a time Jesus Christ, the captain of the host, is going to come up that direction. And I think I've covered at some point how he comes up. He gives you the path of how he comes through. But he says something here. He says, the heavens dropped, the clouds also dropped water. Okay, we didn't get anything about rain. However, there is a subject in the Bible about rain, as in literal water. Not someone raining as from a throne, but actual rain coming down in drops. And we'll cover those sometime. Judges 5. Judges 5, we'll do verse 4 and 5 this time. Lord, when thou wentest out of Seir, when thou marchest out of the field of Edom, the earth trembled and the heavens dropped. The clouds also dropped water. The mountains melted from before the Lord, even Sinai, from before the Lord God of Israel. Sinai is way, way south of the battle. So it's not really chapter 4 that we're talking about something else. Edom and Sinai are miles and miles apart. Usually, if you're reading what people will tell you what this means, they'll say he's talking about when he came down on Sinai and gave the law. You remember the whole mountain was on a quake, and he says there was lightning and thunder, and don't let your dog come near, we're going to kill it. And all the guys were throwing their cats up there. No. I had to relive it there for a minute. So that didn't happen. There wasn't any rain there. We get a lot of things that happen, but nothing about rain. So that's got to be something else. And Mount Sinai didn't melt. So that can't be it. It must be a literal fulfillment that's not happened yet. Exodus 19, let's see it happen. Exodus 19:18, or the giving of the law. He says, and Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke. It is not the kind of smoke they do around here. Because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended up as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. Didn't say melted. We've seen he knows how to say the word melted. If he had meant melt, it would have said melt. So that can't be the fulfillment of it. Joel chapter 2. So we'll find these clouds drop some actual water, some rain. Joel 2, verse 23. Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. Okay, that's a double dose of rain all at once. That's what the children of Israel were promised. If you'll do what you're supposed to, then I'll be sure that you get the rain needed for your crops at the first and at the Joel 2:23. Yeah. Deuteronomy 11:14. He says that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain. Okay, that's obviously separated, first and last, not double it up in one day. That thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thy oil. Okay, so he's dumping out both rains at once for a reason. Well, it's obviously not because they're going to be sowing the field and getting crops in. The whole harvest is done, and he's dumping out rain. Hosea 6, verse 3. Y'all knew we were going to Hosea. Then shall we know, if we follow on to know the Lord, his going forth is prepared as the morning, and he shall come unto us as the rain, as the latter and former rain unto the earth. That is, he's coming back, and what precedes him coming back is the heavens open up and dump out a deluge of water. Revelation 12:15. Here's how I say this rain shows up as water. I think he forces the devil to do a miracle for him. Revelation 12:15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So those are the ones out there that are fleeing for their life in Petra. And the Antichrist, the devil, and all the bad guys are after him. And he's working all of these miraculous signs and wonders, he said, with which he deceives the whole world. One of them is he causes all of this flood, this water, it's probably a supernatural thing, to go in. And think about it, if you're hiding out in Petra, you've seen the pictures of Petra. It's the big stone encasements, and it's a trap if you were to be flooded out. If you go into a rock, it's not like a building where you've got a front door and a rear door. I don't think any of those have been grandfathered in with the fire exits. And he's flooding that valley with water, expecting the water to go in and flood all the crevices. And God says, no, I pulled a trick on him. I just said, earth, y'all can have it now, have a drink. And they drink it up, and the water doesn't do anything to them. Judges 5, verse 6. Judges 5, 6. We should be in Daniel, but we're not really. The Bible is laid out in an order, and you're supposed to get now you don't always get it in order. As you're reading it, it won't make sense until you get to the end, and then you'll say there was something back there that matched, and you got to go back and forth. But in the progression we've seen so far, some things should have stuck in your mind. So now we've been Daniel, and we're remembering some things he's told us about this event, them getting the kingdom. So we've gone back, we've backtracked to Judges to find it. Now we're in Judges, and Judges is going to tell us we've got to backtrack even farther in the book of Judges. He's going to, not he, it's a she here, Deborah. Deborah is going to tell us about a previous judge that definitely was not at the battle. Judges 5, verse 6. In the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were unoccupied, the travelers walked through byways. The inhabitants of the villages ceased. They ceased in Israel until that I, Deborah, arose, a mother in Israel. He said a lot there. He said the passages, the highways are empty. I wish they'd do that around here. They're empty for a reason. The reason is not a bunch of cops. The reason is the bad guys are laying wait for them. Now, she's pointed us back to another judge, a judge that showed up in chapter 3. But before we get to chapter 3, I'm going to give you a few more things. Go to Lamentations. Lamentations 4. In the tribulation, it's going to be this way if you're a Jew. You better stay off the highway. You better stay out of sight. Like the days of Hitler. If you were a Jew, you stayed hidden. You didn't want to be seen. This passage is telling us about the slaughter that was that's going to occur under the tribulation time period. Lamentations 4, verse 18. They hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near. Our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. Now, I'm sure every Jew thought that he had fulfilled that under Hitler. However, it's going to repeat on high when the Antichrist shows up. And the Jews are really coming after, they're getting slaughtered left and right by the Antichrist. When the Antichrist sets up his image, you know, the abomination makes desolate in the temple. Well, they're supposed to run. They're supposed to get out of Dodge. Well, that means you got to get on the highway. So a lot of them are probably going to get slaughtered. Now, not all of them are going to do that. Matthew 24, here's what Jesus told them to do. Matthew 24:15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. That means somebody's going to be reading the book of Matthew in the tribulation. And let them which be in Judea flee unto the mountains. That's Matthew 24:15-16. So what Jesus told them to do is, when you see what Daniel talked about happen, Daniel chapter 9, then what you need to do is get down and flee to the mountains. The mountains there is going to be Petra. It's going to be Edom. We covered it this morning. The mountains are Selah Petra is how it's phrased in Psalms. Every time that word shows up, Selah, it's usually a reference to something that's going to happen in the tribulation. 2 Kings 14, 2 Kings 14:7. Petra is actually the property of Edom. He hates Edom. And we find today that Edom was conquered by David. 2 Kings 14:7. He slew of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000 and took Selah by war and called the name of it Jokthel unto this day. That is, Selah Petra was captured in a warfare away from the Edomites. God has laid claim to it because he told his children that's where they're going to run and hide. Jesus says, get down and run to the mountains. That's where the mountains are. Psalm 3 verse 2. Psalm 3 verse 2. We talked about David the prophet. And here's how Israel's going to feel if they're fleeing there to find a hold up. Psalm 3 verse 2. Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. There's our word, Selah. Well, there will be help, and that's where it'll be, in Selah, in Petra. The remnant of the Israelites are going to run to Petra. Some of them don't run. Some of them probably do what is easy. They give in to the Antichrist and worship him. And they won't be liked for long either. That's the devil. The devil's not good to his people either. They're going to be food for the priest soon. And so some of them will flee. Some of them will get caught up and get killed in the process. Some of them will capitulate and serve the devil. Look at Lamentations 4:19. Lamentations 4:19. It's not a matter of they just get to run down to Petra and they're safe. They may not all make it there. The devil's no dummy. He's got some ambushes waiting. Lamentations 4:19. Our persecutors are swifter than the eagles of the heaven. They pursue us upon the mountains, the place they were supposed to go. They laid wait for us in the wilderness. That's wilderness down there around the Dead Sea as you're heading toward it. The devil continues to make war with the Jews even while they're in Petra. His goal, and it's a satanic goal just like every country who's gone anti-Semitic, is that he's got to stamp out every Jew that ever lived. And it's going to be worse than it's ever been. Revelation 12:17. Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So here the dragon, this is a supernatural demonic beast who's mad at these remnant who have remained alive and escaped his traps. And he's going after them to kill them and persecute them. Look at Lamentations 5, Lamentations 5:9. We know God's going to rain manna down for them, but it's not a matter of just like they came through in the wilderness and they get to walk out there in the wilderness and nobody's around and they get to scoop them up a bowl of it. This, they've got to be hoping that nobody's got the spyglass on them. Lamentations 5:9. We got our bread at the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. That is, he's got an outpost out there, and their job is to seek out and find all the Jews they can. And when they come to the watering hole, when they come out to get bread that God's dumping out of the sky, go kill them. Judges 5, verse 7. Judges 5:7. Judges 5:7. The inhabitants of the villages ceased. They ceased in Israel until that I, Deborah, arose, that I arose a mother in Israel. This is, she's given high praise. You'll find some women in the Bible that are given high praise. This one is given high praise almost sarcastically against the man who was supposed to stand up. And he didn't. Now, this is not the way the Catholic Church does it. The Catholic Church says, if you're going to be the representative of the seat of the Pope, then you need to be celibate. That's not what God intended. God intends families. Here, the one he's using is claiming to be a mother in Israel, not celibacy. That's what the devil does. The devil's going to outlaw marriage because that's something God set up. It's a picture of Christ and the church. Look at 2 Samuel 20. 2 Samuel 20, verse 19. This is Abimelech getting his head smashed in. 2 Samuel 20, 19. I am one of them that are peaceful and faithful in Israel. Thou seekest to destroy a city and a mother in Israel. Wilt thou swallow up the inheritance of the Lord? That is, the idea is this: a mother has value. The mother, oh, there goes my, didn't like that. The mother produces the children. It's going to populate the nation. So in God's point of view, that's a good thing. That's not going to be the idea of the Antichrist. The Antichrist is going to be, you're all disposable. We don't need families. We need individuals. Everybody is a child of the state. It's the very thing that Hitler did. Hitler took the children away from their parents, made them wards of the state, because they want to control everything. It's communism to the extreme. Look at 1 Timothy 4. 1 Timothy 4, verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times, that's tribulation, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats. Two things the Antichrist is going to do. He's going to demand everybody be a vegetarian and outlaw marriage, which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them that which believe and know the truth. So you can know that verse and pull it on somebody at the steakhouse. Ask them if they're saved. If they're not saved, tell them they can't eat. That's supposed to be, according to my Bible, that's supposed to be only for Christians, and only after we say thanks for it. Judges 5, verse 8. What Deborah's doing is she's giving you a play-by-play of the tribulation, marching you all the way up to the second advent. Judges 5, verse 8. They chose new gods. Then was there war in the gates. Was there a shield or spear seen among 40,000 in Israel? My heart is toward the governors of Israel that offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless ye the Lord. Speak ye that ride on white asses, ye that sit in judgment and walk by the way, they that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the places of drawing water. There shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of the village in Israel. Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates. A whole lot there. What time have we got to? Yeah, it's time. We'll have to pick it up there next week. We broke a little earlier than I thought we were going to have to, but you can look at that passage and figure out where we're going from it. He says they got new gods. Okay, well, you can figure out what the gods are that they're going to have in the tribulation. He says an interesting thing here about governors and then people riding on white asses. We're going to have to cover that. He talks about the noise of the archers. Is that real loud? That doesn't seem real loud. That's like saying I heard the blast from the blowgun. The dart gun. That the two don't seem to jibe, but we'll put it together when we get there. He says there that they went down, as in whoever the helper is from a higher elevation than they are and comes down. And they do it, they're coming from a specific spot, the watering hole, wherever that is. All right, well, that's something to get your mind working on it, and we'll clear it up next week. All right, we'll pick up at Judges 5:8 next week. And I'm not going to give you all of Judges 5. we'll cut it off probably at Judges 5:20.